Half a day, good evening, and thanks for tuning in to PNC's News First. We're live from the Broadcast Center, Aconta. I'm Clint Rigel.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Thanks for joining us. Your top story tonight, a report has come out of the Philippines where a man has confessed to murdering retired Guam Aflac Regional Sales Coordinator Frank Cruz, who is also a former chairman for the Democratic Party of Guam. According to a report from the Philippine Daily Inquirer, a 35-year-old man by the name of Lito Sumudong had been arrested on illegal drug and gun possession charges when he confessed to committing another crime, killing Cruz and burying him in a shallow grave with the help of two others. The 73-year-old Cruz had been reported missing since February 28th. He was the former chairman of the Democratic Party from 1977 to 1979. Sumudong allegedly confessed that they had robbed Cruz before murdering him and that he came clean because his conscience was bothering him. Authorities dug up the shallow grave where Cruz was buried and found him with his hands tied behind his back and packing tape wrapped around his head. The two accomplices have been identified as Hiuen Buntuyan Borja and his minor daughter. Authorities are preparing to press charges against the three alleged murderers.
Governor Eddie Calvo signed Bill 248 into law this afternoon, as he said he would officially do, approving a 1% increase to the business privilege tax beginning on April 1st until September 30th, and a 2% sales tax beginning on October 1st. The governor thanked the senators, both Republican and Democrat, who voted in favor of the measure, saying it will now provide GovGuam with a roadmap to recovery. However, he was quick to point out that GovGuam is not out of the woods yet. The actual cash from the BPT increase won't be received until May 20th, which means they will still have difficulty making payroll until then. Even with this infusion of cash, GovGuam will still be about $37 million short for the fiscal year because the estimated revenue from the new tax will be about $30 million, while the total shortfall is about $67 million. Because of this, the governor says all the cuts he's made thus far, like the non-renewal of 40 LTA employees' contracts, the closure of 2 fire stations, the Higatnya Police Precinct, the public pools, and parks will all remain in effect. Adelup will also continue their voluntary 32-hour work week cut in salary. The governor says although they have cut their salaries to reflect a 32-hour work week, he and his staff, he says, are still working full weeks.
Every day of inaction is one day lost, and the crisis would worsen. I do believe that if we had acted sooner, you would have seen not the type of reports we're getting out of Standard & Poor's as well as Moody's in terms of a negative credit watch. I want to thank the senators. They have given the governor the authority to move forward in reorganization. So this is a way for us to look at our government operations and to reorganize with this extra authority, and so that we can build a government that is run more efficiently, at cost savings, and provides better services.
Prompter. The governor says he is confident that they will right the ship of state. He's happy that GMH will finally get the subsidy it needs, and he says GDOE will not have to make the drastic $19 million in cuts it was looking at making. As far as the $30 to $37 million in cuts that are still needed, the governor said the fiscal realignment plan will be turned in before April 1st, and he says he will work with the legislature on consolidating agencies, reorganizing, and potentially reducing the GovGuam workforce.
Chief of Police J.I. Cruz is looking to oust Public Safety Oversight Chairwoman Senator Talina Nelson, saying the Guam Police Department has lost all confidence in their public safety oversight for failing to fight for the department. But the senator says she received assurances from the chief that his agency can continue to maintain operations despite the budget cuts. Chief of Police J.I. Cruz wrote to Speaker B.J. Cruz today asking him to remove Senator Talina Nelson as the oversight chairperson for public safety. He said, quote, the Guam Police Department has lost the confidence required of Senator Nelson to be decisive in the most recent special sessions, end quote. The federal tax cuts has created a $67 million shortfall in Gov's Guam budget, and of that amount, GPD will bear $3.6 million in cuts. Cruz says no dialogue was ever initiated by Nelson regarding these cuts or its impacts. Cruz quoted Nelson from a March 4 session while in Committee of the Whole, in which she said she was confident that the chief of police can continue to meet GPD's mission with these cuts, quote, because that is his job as the chief of police, to ensure that the mission can be met and to protect the safety of the people, end quote. Senator Nelson responded to this on News Talk K57's 4-Hour Fill.
My statement was made in response to the chief's statement, where he was asked outright if you're able to meet your operational needs and ensure that the public is protected. Mm-hmm. And we had the police chief and the fire chief.
Yeah, and I remember
the police chief gave a north and south, and confidently said yes.
Yeah, and I remember that the fire chief said he couldn't be as confident as the police chief was.
Right, and so that was my response. I'm not in the police chief's foxhole, and so if he feels that those decisions that he made will not hinder the safety of our community, then I have to believe him at that. Because I know he's a man of integrity.
Cruz expressed disappointment in Nelson's lack of support for the recent tax hike measures that, quote, averts a negative impact to the sworn and unsworn personnel in the force who all perform the public safety mission, end quote. To the contrary, Nelson says she's been an advocate for GPD and has introduced a measure to enhance revenues for the police force. She also pointed out that she voted no on the cuts to public safety.
We're going to have over $100 million. We're going to have a $100 million shortfall for FY19. And so I've been looking for additional revenue to fund our public safety. And we introduced the liquid fuel tax surcharge, which is a very controversial bill. But I feel that it is necessary to be addressed because we need to fund our public safety.
You can read the Chief of Police's letter and listen to Senator Nelson's interview online at pacificnewscenter.com. In other news, a review of the Guam Memorial Hospital staffing patterns show that several physicians are still listed as paid employees, even if they haven't been working there, some for years. The amount in question is over $1.6 million. But GMH Administrator Peter John Camacho says there is an explanation for this discrepancy. The staffing pattern for the fourth quarter ending December 31st lists several doctors who are no longer with GMH, some of whom have not set foot at the hospital in years, but their salaries are still reflected in the staffing pattern. They include Dr. Mike Cruz with an annual salary of $100,360. He hasn't worked in GMH for 7 years. Dr. Noel Concepcion, $260,000. He hasn't been on Guam for a few years. Dr. Alexander Yap, $260,000. Dr. Alan Garvin, $130,000. Dr. Shuit Wildettensaw, $260,000. Dr. Dat Doe, $130,000. Dr. Adam Saad, $100,360. And Dr. Brian Bates, $100,360. This amounts to about $1.3 million in salaries for doctors who have not been working for GMH in years. GMH CEO Peter John Camacho notes that the doctors have been removed from the staffing pattern as of January 31st. 3 doctors are also listed as having full-time salaries, but Camacho says they are only working on a part-time basis. Dr. John Marilat at $260,000, but only works 4 hours per pay period. Dr. Syed Safabaksh at $98,800, but only works 20 hours per pay period. And Dr. John Fegeger at $100,360, but he only works 40 hours per pay period. This makes the salaries for the 3 part-time doctors inflated by about $297,000. The salaries listed in the staffing pattern reflect what the physicians would earn if they worked on a full-time basis. Camacho says it's kept that way because they work on call, and if an emergency arises, GMH won't have to reprocess them into the HR system. Then there's the salaries for Dr. Larry Lozamo, who has 2 salaries, one as the medical director for the Department of Corrections at $299,998, and the other as a director of outpatient services at $208,000, making him the highest paid administrator for a combined salary of about $508,000. Both positions show that Dr. Lizama is receiving full GovGuam benefits, $11,900 for the DOC position and $13,900 for the outpatient services position, for an approximate total of $25,800 in benefits. But Camacho says the staffing pattern isn't entirely accurate. While Dr. Lizama indeed receives two salaries, one of them, the outpatient services director position, should only be listed at $104,000 since he only performs that job part-time, which, if corrected, would mean Dr. Lizama receives a combined salary of about $403,000. Camacho also says Dr. Lizama only receives benefits for the DOC position since part-time positions do not receive benefits. With that in mind, the highest paid physician is interventional radiologist Dr. Miran Rabadi, with an annual salary of $478,400. Staffing patterns show that he receives over $178,000 in annual benefits, putting his base plus benefits at about $657,000. Dr. Rabadi's specialty is in diagnostic radiology, but he has said that he's unable to perform the life-saving procedures he was hired for, such as removing blood clots in stroke patients, because GMH lacks the equipment to perform them. And you can read more online at PacificNewsCenter.com.
Bond credit rating company Moody's has changed the outlook for the Guam Power Authority's senior lean revenue bonds ratings from stable to negative. Although not considered a downgrade in their official rating, the change in outlook to negative was directly related to the financial health and stability of GovGuam. In their announcement, the ratings company states that although GovGuam has remained current on paying its bills and there's been no pressure to receive transfers from GPA, GovGuam represents about 15% of GPA's FY 2017 revenues. Statement continues, quote, a deterioration of government finances or local economic conditions could put pressure on outstanding receivables and customers' ability to pay their bills. In addition, the Public Utility Commission's willingness to support rate increases could weaken during time of economic stress. This latest change follows a similar one for GWA bonds and for GovGuam's issuer rating. Last week, Standard & Poor's put a credit watch on Guam's general obligation bonds and certificates of participation. Both Moody's and S&P expressed concern over the Federal Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which resulted in a $67 million reduction in revenue for GovGuam through the end of this fiscal year.
Two Tumon restaurants that share the same kitchen were shut down yesterday after a patron saw a rat dart across one of the restaurant's floor while they were dining. A public health inspection report shows that both the Shogun restaurant and Mom's Bop Burger, which are adjacent and owned by the same company, received a C grading, with Shogun getting 30 demerit points and Mom's Bop Burger receiving 24 demerit points. A C grade doesn't automatically shut down a restaurant, but Chief Environmental Health Officer from Public Health Tom Nadeau says the two restaurants' sanitary permits were suspended because of the presence of rodents. The report says a customer who ate at Shogun saw a rat dart across the floor. Sure enough, when inspectors arrived, they found fresh rodent droppings inside the grease containment drawer under grills in the dining area, and dead cockroaches were found throughout the restaurant. When they reviewed the company's pest control report, it said that 8 rodents were caught or seen within the past couple of months. The report indicated that the active rodent infestation might be the result of several openings and gaps throughout the establishment. It's not clear if rodents were present inside Mom's Bop Burger as well, but because it shares a kitchen with Shogun, both restaurants were shut down. You can read both reports online at PacificNewsCenter.com.
3 alleged drug dealers are behind bars after a concerned citizen tipped off local authorities that drugs were being sold from a condo in Harmon. Police set up surveillance of the alleged drug house after receiving a tip that methamphetamine was being sold from the home. As officers watched the residence, they observed a Mazda 3 pull into the parking lot. From the vehicle emerged Michaelinset Takano, who walked up to the stairs of the condo. According to court documents, when police knocked on the door and identified a male individual attempted to flee the condo by jumping off the balcony, subsequently injuring himself. Authorities did not make any arrests at that time. However, they later came back with a search warrant. During the raid of the condo, police officers located Johnny Rosalind Rosario. Mika Takano and Joshua Paul Taitsino. The complaint states that police seized 2 grams of methamphetamine in the residence, 3 grams of meth in the Mazda, and over $1,000 in cash. The 3 allegedly admitted to ownership of the drugs but denied distribution. They were charged with possession of a Schedule II controlled substance and possession with the intent to deliver. They were booked and confined.
Well, the Guam Department of Education has put a hold on implementing its Phase 2 and Phase 3 of cost reductions. However, Phase 1 reductions will remain in place. Those include such cost-saving measures, the central office hiring freeze, delaying the expansion of pre-kindergarten, reduction in utilities and contracts, and delayed onboarding of substitute teachers until October 1st. Earlier this week, Superintendent John Fernandez announced that without relief in the form of legislative action, the department would be forced to implement deeper cuts outlined in Phase 2 and 3. Those included freezing salary increments, limiting on-call substitute teachers, and freezing hiring at the school level. The implementation of a 32-hour work week as well as an October 1st school year has also been delayed.
Multi-platinum recording artist, actress, and Broadway star Vanessa Williams is here on island and set to take the stage tomorrow night in an effort to raise awareness about an epidemic which is ravishing our island. Her soulful voice is beautiful and strong, but her heart is even stronger, and her soul a beacon of compassion, as the motive behind her visit to Guam isn't to sell tickets, but instead to raise awareness about a disease which has plagued our island for years: diabetes.
One of the reasons why it is such an important cause of awareness for me is my grandmother died at 64, which is relatively young.
Shared that she lost her grandmother to diabetes. She recalled how her grandmother stubbed her toe, and while it is seemingly a common injury, her grandmother's diabetes turned the injury into a dire situation, which ultimately led to amputation. Having this occur in her life, Williams understands firsthand the tragedy that diabetes can cause, and it has provided her with a reason to not only raise awareness, but to promote a healthy lifestyle.
I think between my mother making sure that when me and my brother were growing up, that would never happen to her, and in turn, I have 4 children.
And while living a healthy lifestyle on Guam is constantly a battle with all of the delicious island cuisine, Williams points out that it's all about taking care of yourself, eating healthy, exercising, and setting the example for our youth. Williams has been on island for 5 days, and since here, she's taken in everything Guam has to offer while making sure to spread the word and raise awareness in the fight against diabetes.
I've had such a warm welcome from everyone that I've met, and also been able to do a lot of things that I love to do and new things that I never thought I'd be able to do.
Williams will be performing tomorrow night at the Dusitani for the Guam Diabetes Foundation Gala at 6 p.m., but this may not be the last time we see Williams on island, as she has embraced the island and our hospitality. All right, that's it for News First. From all of us here at PNC, thanks for watching. Stay Maoli.
And have a good night.